Hey everyone, it's good to have you here on the Handoff Podcast. We had special guest Andy Clark on our first ever episode today. It was a lot of fun talking to him, and I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you, Coach, for meeting with me today. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to diving into a lot of stuff with you today. So I'll just start off. Tell me a little bit about yourself, like where you grew up, how many years you've coached and played, and then where you've coached in some of those spots. I know there's a lot. You've been doing it for a long time, but just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I am a Central Ohio born and raised. Lived in Plain City, Ohio. Went to Jonathan Alder High School. Graduated from there in 1975. Was blessed enough to have the opportunity to go on from there to Muskingum College at the time. It wasn't Muskingum University. It was Muskingum College at the time. And was able to play basketball there 4 years for Jim Burson, who is legendary in that part of the state and even national level to some degree. Began my coaching career in 1979. I've had 40 total seasons of coaching, 13 as a head coach, 23 as a high school assistant, and 4 as a college assistant. Back at Muskingum back in the early 80s. So had a wonderful career, met some wonderful people, and most of them around Central Ohio in high schools. I was head coach at most recently Bishop Reedy in the early 2000s. I was the head coach at Jonathan Alder High School, my alma mater, for a period. I was head coach at Worthington Kilbourne, where my last teaching job was. I was head coach at Tays Valley High School coming out of college early in my career. So I've kind of been around Central Ohio and finished up my last years. One of my best years at the end was at some little school called Fairbanks, about 10 minutes from my house, and had a really enjoyable couple years there.
Yeah, well, in those years, obviously, let the audience know you coached me. I was fortunate enough to have you for 2 years, my junior and senior year of high school, and and a lot of people know how much respect I have for you and how much I admire the experience and basketball knowledge you've had. So super lucky to have you here on the podcast today. I do want to start off with one of the things I respected most about you as far as being a coach, and that was your ability to scout. Still some of the best scouting reports I've seen, and I've been at Muskingum for a couple of years now. One strictly from a personnel standpoint, what's kind of the process that you go through to where you get such descriptive analysis on each player?
Well, I think it just comes from years. And again, that goes back to my time with Coach Burson. Coach Burson had very detailed scouting reports and was really the first time as a player or coach, I was exposed to that level of scouting. And I think, when you prepare a scouting report, you're looking for something that can not necessarily equalize, but maybe save you a basket or two. I know I've told you and told all my teams, having a good scouting report isn't going to all of a sudden guarantee that you're going to win, but there's so many games over the course of their careers that are decided by 1 or 2 baskets. And if a good preparation from a scouting report and knowing those things in practice and carrying them over to the game could save you 1 basket each half, 4 points, that might be the difference between winning and losing. You just never know. I think when you look at a scouting report, there are kind of 3 areas I always had mine in. One, just some general comments about the team. What was kind of the vibe? What did I kind of feel like their philosophy was? Were they kind of an offensive emphasis team that, I used to use the phrase, hey, they're going to be, I'll let you shoot, you let me shoot, and we'll see who shoots it better. Or were they more like when we played like a West Jefferson, which was very structured and very disciplined and long possessions? And so I looked number one, just a general vibe of what I thought their team philosophy was, both offensively and defensively. Personnel was probably the second area. And again, I just look for tendencies. Like if I would see a guy that would make the same move multiple times, go back to players that we watched the Smith player at Mechanicsburg, who was really an outstanding player, tremendous athlete, and especially for our league. And his tendency, and I saw it multiple times, both on film and in person, was when he came up to somebody, he was going to do a little stutter and then go left. He wanted to go left to finish. And a lot of right handed shooters like to do that because they have their shooting arm closer to the basket. It's an easier square up. So in a post situation, some post guys, they're always going to initiate with a shot fake. Some post guys, they're going to left shoulder hit and spin. You just try to see a tendency so that you can know if you're guarding this guy, this is kind of what he wants to do to me. And then third, and the final kind of area of my scouting report, I tried to go were schematics, plays, sets, out of bounds plays. And again, you can go crazy and almost give too much information. So I tried to keep it to, hey, these are like their three favorites. If they need a basket, I feel pretty high confidence that they're going to run one of these three. And the same thing kind of with out of bounds plays. And you could identify by alignment, you could identify by call, you could identify by initial movement, whatever that may be. But those were basically how I kind of tried to divide my scouting reports up into thirds.
You did mention you don't want to overwhelm your guys by just throwing, 10 to 15 sets on there. So how do you
Yes.
decipher, what is something that you really have to have on that scouting report and then something that, matters a little bit less, or does that just depend on each game? How do you kind of decide that?
Well, there's like things I think not really tells, but little things you look for. Like one of the things I always look for is like, what do they run coming out of a timeout? Because I think when coaches call timeouts, they tend to go to something that they know the kids are familiar with and something that the coach is comfortable with and they feel like they've been successful with. So one of the things I always check for is like, what do I see out of timeouts? And if I see the same set out of multiple timeouts, that kind of tells me that, hey, this is something they really like to run. This is something that they're going to go to, multiple times during the game. And the other thing is you can see during the game when they run a certain set or a certain scheme multiple times, that is, obviously one that they're going to go to. For years and years at Fairbanks is going to run basic. So, back screen the wing, cross screen the post, flash to the high post. I mean, they've done that, I think, since back before they widened the lane, probably. But you just kind of know after watching people kind of what their pet ones are. Now, you might see other sets and other calls, but maybe you only see it once or once a game or once every two games. And that's an example of something I think, maybe the benefit by showing and teaching how to defend that maybe is more negative than positive. You're just filling more of their heads with things that, they may not need to know. But I think just by watching and kind of watching coaches' reactions and players' reactions, you can tell a little bit if a certain set or a certain scheme is like a favorite and a go-to one for them.
Obviously, towards the beginning of your career, you had to go and scout in person, and towards the
Mm-hmm.
end of it, you kind of had to transition into, you had live stream as well.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I always noticed about you when you were scouting, you'd watch a play and you just kind of had it right away. So is
Mm-hmm.
that something you just developed, or
It wasn't. It's just from years of doing it. And still, basketball is a great game schematically, but there's still only so many things you can and can't do, especially at the high school level. Um, that there's just a lot of common themes or common schemes in the high school level that people do to try to create actions, whether it's isolating the side with a driver and a shooter, what we used to call a clear side. And, almost everybody does that. Some type of back screen, down screen, screen to screener action. There are just things that I have seen over the course of 40 years of doing it. And with the film, it makes it even easier because then I can run it back if I'm not sure. But I still like going in person, especially from the personnel part of it. Just I like to watch kids' reactions and coaches' reactions and responses and hear things. And I think I still get a lot from going in person, although honestly, not very many people do it anymore. There's so much access to film, but I enjoyed films with sets and stuff because, like I said, if it did get past me, there you go. I can run this back. They're going to do it again for me, or I can
Right.
double check on, like, for example, like out of bounds plays. Like some teams have the same guy inbounded all the time, which is a little tougher. Some teams line up the same way all the time, which makes it a little tougher. Some teams have different guys for different out of bounds plays. If this guy's taking it out of bounds, they're going to run a screen on the inbounder. If this guy is in a different spot, they're going to run something else. So there were things like that you could tell based on the people that they had in certain positions and the alignment that they had. But film has been a great thing, and I think it saved people a lot of time and a lot of heartache on their family traveling and scouting. But yeah, in the early days, man, I was on the road a lot, you know, scouting games, and the film part of it wasn't really there.
Yeah, for sure. And especially now with things like Synergy Sports, it makes it
Oh,
really, really easy.
absolutely.
You can get all those clips right away. So definitely cool to see that you got a little bit of both. One of my favorite things about your scouting reports, and you mentioned it earlier, I really liked your how to beat or like your keys segment, and it was the first thing you mentioned. I want to dive a little bit deeper. Every coach has their idea of what that looks like. What goes into your process of kind of finding the keys of how to beat your opponent?
Well, I think again that kind of goes back to the first area of it, the just kind of a general vibe. I think every team has certain things that need to happen for them to be able to be competitive in a game. Um, Whether it's a certain person has to score or whether they need to shoot a certain high percentage or high number volume of 3 pointers, whether they need to be a drive team and get into the lane and try to draw fouls. I think you just kind of get a feel for that by seeing it. And I even think seeing them in person, you can get a little better feel for that. So I think as you learn about a team and you see them, and if you're fortunate enough to see like a film and a live scout or maybe two live scouts, you can kind of get an idea of, in order for this team to win, they need this. They need this person to play well. They need this person to stay in the game. He doesn't have to score, but he is really important to them defensively and from a ball handling handling pressure kind of thing. I can remember, a team we played at Reedy. They had a really outstanding point guard that did not score hardly any at all, didn't shoot hardly any at all, but he was so important to him. And we went into that game. I said, anytime he comes out, whether it is for just a break or whatever, we are like flipping the table. We're going to go full court pressure, full court. And they took him out and we pressed and got him to kind of cough it up. They had to put him right back in. And I think that may not seem like a big thing, but now over the course of the game, they feel like, hey, we can't take him out because as soon as they take him out, they know we're going to come after him. No matter what the score or time is, if we got some guys with borderline foul trouble, hey, I'll sub a couple guys. But when this guy comes out, we're going to play really high risk and really scramble and stuff. And then maybe that wears him out a little bit. So by the end of the fourth quarter, maybe he's not quite as fresh. Maybe he, you know, doesn't shoot free throws late as well. Maybe, I think you just got to get a key thing for every team that you play, a certain thing to take away. I'm trying to think of a good example that you could relate with. I mean, one of the strengths I think of our team that we had at Fairbanks was I thought we were pretty balanced. I didn't think we relied on like you and Braylon too much, but I think people saw that if you get Wyatt and Braylon to not play up to their normal production, you got a good chance to beat them. And I think when you go back to that, and the same thing with the guard situation, I think, people would try to wear you down and try to push you into the idiot box. And, early in the game, you knew you weren't going to go there. But if you get wore down and you get a little tired, by the time you get in the fourth quarter, you're just kind of, oh, I got to get across. I know I'm not supposed to go here, but man, I'm dying. I need to get there. So it's just a feel that you have. It's just uh, a vibe that you get from teams, that certain teams need certain people to play a certain way to feel like they have their best chance to win. And as the opponent, you try to counter that and take as much of that away as you can.
So moving away from scouting, you were always really good at motivating in different ways as a coach. Um, how do you balance when blitz someone for dribbling into the idiot box, or being more constructive? Is there a balance there? Does it just depend on who you're coaching? What's your approach to that?
Well, one of the things, honestly, when I was younger, and one of the things I got so much better at when I was older was kind of individualizing my approach with kids. When I was younger, I just, hey, this was how I was coached. This was how I was successful as a player when I was coached. This is how I'm going to coach. And honestly, as I got older, I kind of evolved, and I knew the kids that would respond to a stronger push. I knew the kids that I could not confront in front of everybody else. But if it was just him and me, we'd do it. We're going to have so many inside jokes here. People aren't going to understand what you and I are
Right.
talking about, but it's going to be kind of fun. But like, I knew that when I yelled at you, one, it didn't bother you because you and I had enough of a relationship and spent enough time together that you knew that I cared about you and had your best interest in heart. But I also knew indirectly, when I could kind of chew on you a little bit, it kind of sent a message to the other guys.
For
Like,
sure.
oh yeah, maybe Wyatt isn't his favorite guy. Maybe, wow, can't believe, wow, Coach Clark got on Wyatt, man, I can't believe it. So you try to have a motive behind it, and I think you just try to individually understand each kid and kind of where you're most effective at. And I think there's some kids like yourself that you can take a little bit of liberties with, because you and I knew each other and had a trust. And honestly, your mom and dad had a trust with you and I and how we coached you. There are others you got to really kind of address how you approach it. And you could have 5 point guards, and you're trying to teach them not to dribble into the idiot box and pick the ball up, but it might be 5 different ways to deliver the message to get it across and get it received.
With some of those higher ego guys, I like to call them the alpha. There's a situation a lot of times where, you have a really good player, but they're not as coachable. What's your
Mm-hmm.
approach with that player? I know you said you like to individualize it, but with that player that's just not trying to take anything from you, what's your approach to that? Do you just not say anything, or how's your approach there?
I think when you have to send messages to them, it can't be in front of the other guys, because they almost lose their status. They lose their power. And with them, a lot of times kind of about power. It's about ego. It's about, hey, you guys can't win without me kind of mindset. So most times when I had an outstanding player like that, and I was fortunate, I didn't have very many, but I had a couple that were really pivotal to our success as a team, but didn't contribute to the culture the way that I thought. I mean, my view on it was, hey, look, you've got freedom to do pretty much whatever you want. Now, keep up your end of the bargain and be a good teammate, be a good practice player, be coachable. You're going to be allowed to shoot it pretty much whenever you want. That's a huge responsibility and a huge privilege. Now, what are you going to do for me I'm going to stand up for you on those nights when maybe you miss 7 of your first 8 shots. And I'm still be in your corner and I'm still going to tell you to keep shooting because in my mind and in my heart, that's the role you need to fill to help us be most successful. Now, for me giving you that, what are you going to give me in return? Can you give me the fact that you won't be a jackass to your teammates? Can you give me the fact that, hey, you'll come to practice on time? Can you give me the fact that you'll do everything you can to the best of your ability? Can you give me the fact that if I do correct you in practice, you're not going to give me all the bad body language and the eye rolls and shaking your head and throwing your hands up in the air and the lower lip and all that stuff? So, but, it's a challenge. And I think more and more through the evolution of the kids, and they've gotten so much. I mean, kids are, from the time I started coaching to now, kids are so much better. They're stronger, they're more athletic. They're more skilled. They have access to so much more training, both skill, strength and conditioning, competition in AAUs, YBOAs, off-season opportunities. It's so much higher level of ability. But along with that comes, I think, a higher level of ego and a higher level of pride that you've got to be able to manage within a team setting, or it could come back to bite you.
Kind of shifting things a little bit here on the same topic. How do you boost a player's confidence when they're not performing, the way they can? Maybe they're in a shooting slump. What's your approach to just helping guys out when it comes to their confidence?
I think you just stay consistent. I think the days that you hit 8 of your first 10 when the basket seems like it's about 20 feet wide and, everything you throw up there goes in, I think you're excited, you're happy, as a coach. I think you're excited, you're congratulatory, but not over the top. But it's still, hey, happy for you, glad it went that way. When you have those days where maybe you only hit 1 out of your first 10, I think the one person that the player has to look at is the coach. And the coach can't come at like, hey, what's wrong? What's up with you tonight? As long as people are giving you an effort, as long as they are interacting with their teammates appropriately, as long as they are putting the needs of the team above their individual needs, if they are the guy that I believe in my heart, their role for us to be successful is to shoot the ball X number of times a game, then regardless of what their previous success rate is, I want them to continue to do that. And I think you can sometimes talk to them. A lot of people talk about toughness, and there's a lot of different kinds of toughness. There's physical toughness in the fact that I will dive on a loose ball, take a charge. I'm not very good, but I will sacrifice my body for those guys. There's mental toughness where, the other team is kind of barking and trash talking and trying to get in my head. And, can I push through that and not react? And we had some guys that did, but I think as they went on in my 2 years, I thought they got better at the end of it. They wouldn't listen to all the trash talk and the mouth from the bench and that kind of stuff. Uh, but then there's toughness too, to be able to stay the course, both When I'm doing well, not to expand the course and try to do more than I'm capable, but when I'm not doing well, to stay the course and trust the process and know what I'm doing is what I do well. It's just not giving me the result I want not right now, but I'm going to continue to do the things that I'm doing and trust that it's going to work out and balance out in the end. And that's a toughness in itself, that you don't get down on yourself and you don't, you know, uh, you know, change your approach or change your mindset when things aren't going well. And you hope as a coach, that's one of the life skills they take with them from being in a part of sports, is that you can deal with those tough days. You can deal with the days when you're not as productive. You can deal with the days where there seems like there's like six different things, after your time and wanting you to do stuff for them, but you still find a way to get through it. You don't change who you are. You don't change your course.
Now, you and I spent a lot of time together training in the off season. Obviously,
We
you
did.
helped me so much with my game over the 2 years
All
I was
legal, I
at.
might add. Nothing illegal.
Yeah, right, right, of course. So, yeah, going into the training, like I said, 2 years at Fairbanks, we were together quite a bit. What goes into building your training regimen? Is it player specific, position specific? How do you go about personalizing your training depending on the player you're training?
Well, there are some things I think in off-season training that are universal, other than position. Passing, catching, a degree of ball handling, being able to shoot, both what we called a one count 3-point shot and be able to shoot the 2 count big boy jumper that we talked about. I mean, you kind of evolve people into that. And there are other things I think that are very position specific, whether they're post perimeter, whether they're, trying to improve a skill where I want to become a better driver or become a better 3-point shooter, or whether I really want to hone my skill. I'm already a pretty good off the bounce kind of player. I'm already a pretty good driver. I want to go to that next level and be an outstanding driver. I want to be a great player off the bounce. And the same thing with 3-point shooting. I think the key there is, and again, I learned this more as I went on in my career, was that you have to identify the kids that really want that. And then you have to encourage them and provide for them. And at the same time, not discourage or not make the others feel neglected or like, well, I like Wyatt better because I spend a lot of time with him in the off season, or, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt in practice because we worked out a lot in the summer.
Do you think it's important for players to develop their skill based on their role with the team, or do you think it's more important for them to base it off of what their aspirations are? I've kind of heard in the off season it's important for them to build the skills that they want to build, and then when it comes to the season, that's when you're trying to build your role with the team. What's your approach to kind of balancing those two things?
Well, I think your general skill level, that can help anybody, whether you are like a guy that hits it every day or a guy that, I just kind of, I'll come in and shoot a couple days a week, do a little ball handling or something like that. But, I got other things to do in my life and that kind of stuff, which again is great. I have no problem with that at all. I think they're a little bit, not dependent on each other. I think you can improve your skill set, but I think your role on the team is a little more complex. That you could have the best or worst skills in the game, but if you're like the best lockdown defender rebounder, I think there's a role for you. Now, if you can improve your skills, that obviously makes you even more attractive and maybe your role could expand. But I don't think just by improving your skills, you're guaranteed. Well, if you improve your skills, I guarantee you we'll get you 12 shots a game. or we'll get you 25 minutes a game if you improve. Because, you can improve. Your role might be 12 shots a game. Your role might be normally you're going to get 4 or 5 shots. There might be nights you get 12. There might be nights we need you to score, but by and large, this is what your role is, or your role is to rebound and defend. And the shots that you get, you got to kind of earn them. You got to go offensive rebound and score. And you're going to get a lot of satisfaction from helping other people get shots, which is really, a tough one to sell. Hey, I want you to play. You're a really good defender. You're a really good rebounder. I want you to help, kind of like the conversation I'd have with Kyler. I want you to help Wyatt get shots. I want you to help Carter get shots. I want you to help Braylon get open. I want you to help Trey get shots. I want you to, help Dylan bring the ball up, by, kind of giving him a little bit of a pick guy to help. That's how I'm going to evaluate what you do. Not going to be, well, I had 12 and 10 tonight. If you get that, great. And I'll work with you to help maybe make that more likely. But that's not what we need you to win. We need you to do these things. And that's a great challenge because as people invest time and money in their skills, in strength and conditioning, in competition through AAU, YBOA, those kind of things, in exposure and those kind of things, they expect a return on their investment. And the return on the investment for them might not be, well, I want you to be the defense rebound guy. We got better. We did this, and this. I appreciate that. And yes, you have gotten better. But for our team to be most successful, this is what I think I need you to do. I need you to come off the bench. I need you to be the physical defender. If you have 2 fouls and you get a third one, that's okay because that's what I want you to do. And it's hard. It's hard.
And then when you do get pushback as well from that, maybe telling a guy that he is going to have that defense and rebounding, sort of role on the team, how do you approach it when you do get that pushback? Is do you just find someone else or do you just continue to try to help them with that role? How does that look? What does that look like?
No, it's a sales job. I mean, it really is. I mean, um, and again, you hope it's another one of those life lessons that kids take with them that the organization and the group, the needs of that have to outweigh the needs of myself. And, um, you just have to learn that you are going to be in situations your whole life, in professional life, the workplace, family, as a husband, as a parent, as a leader, as a follower, where you're going to be in different levels of responsibility and different levels of recognition that you're going to receive. And again, the key is, can you take pride in all those, whether you are the top dog, the alpha dog, or whether you are just another guy? Because once you get out in the real world, you better be able to accept that and you better be able to thrive in both roles because if you don't, that's where you're going to lose a job or split a family or, even something worse. So it's just a sales job. It's just to try to tell them. I mean, I guess at certain points, some kids can't be reached. And you still have to try your best to get as much out of them as you can. And, as a coach, I think it's easy to say, hey, I'm just going to, you're done. You're out. You're killing our culture. You're not. But again, I don't think that teaches them what you hope they get from coming out of. You hope at the end of the day when they come out, they understand the value of a culture.
And then we'll move into our next segment here, the kind of the fun one, I guess you could say. We're calling
Okay.
it Would You Rather. So I'll just start with the first one here. Would you rather have your players focus more on skill development or lifting and strength development?
I would probably say skill development. I've seen a lot of teams overachieve strictly on the fact that they could handle it and shoot it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I think I definitely have to agree with you there. Yeah, obviously we both know that both are really important.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it's good to get in the gym and definitely get those shots up. The second one here, would you rather have a healthy, fun environment with slightly less discipline, or sort of that militaristic environment with nothing but discipline? I know you've been a part of both in your coaching career. If you had to
Yeah.
pick one or the other, which one would you go with there?
Uh, uh, Andy Clark, till he was about 30, probably would have said the uber discipline. After that, I think it's important, especially at the high school level, that it has to be perceived by your players as a fun environment. There has to be a feeling, discipline, and structure. But I think in this day and age, I think it is really important that it is perceived as a fun time for them as well. So I'd go with the first one, the
Yeah.
fun with appropriate discipline and structure.
Yeah, I think for me, it's probably realistically a good balance of the two is
Mm-hmm.
necessary. At the college level, in my perspective, I think Coach Wally does a really good job of making it a fun environment and a healthy environment. That's
Mm-hmm.
something I've always really appreciated about him.
That's become, you hear this term culture, and you've heard it so much more probably just in the last, I don't know, 8, 10 years,
Yeah,
where it's really emphasized that, kind of the environment that is perceived around a program. So that's kind of a not a new buzzword, but it's one I think it's gotten more attention just in the last decade or so.
yeah. And then when scouting, so I don't know if you noticed or not, I've kind of done all three of our topics here. I've picked a would you rather for
Mm-hmm.
each of them. When scouting, would you rather focus more on personnel, like the individual players, or what they're trying to do as a whole, kind of the team?
Uh, just the general vibe of the players. I'd probably say the players because I think the players' strengths and weaknesses determine a little bit what that general vibe is. If I got a pretty good feel on each player's what they do well and what they maybe don't do quite as well, I think I can piece together what kind of the vibe of the team's going to be.
Great. And then this will be the last question here, and I'm going to ask everyone I have on the show. If you could give your college self or kind of your younger self advice, what would you tell that person?
Work harder in the off season. We work so hard during the season. It's almost like the spring was kind of like we'd come in the fall and we'd play every day and we had conditioning on the track. And then the season was such a challenge and so demanding physically and mentally. By the time we got to spring, you didn't lift like I should, probably didn't eat like I should, and take care of myself like I should. And at the time, you're thinking, man, I need to exhale, I need to relax a little bit, I need to get away from it. And then it's over in 4 years, and you're done. I wish I had some of them off seasons back, both in high school and uh, college. That where the things that people had access to today. I wish I would have seeked that a little harder when I was going through high school and college.